to the Harshē podcast. I'm Brandon.
And January.
We are back.
Yes, we are. What are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about Harshē Chiropractic.
Awesome. I know you've been wanting to talk about this for a little while.
I have. But first,
yes,
we were going to talk about our little Black Friday surprise that I teased on Instagram yesterday.
Yes. We have a surprise for next week. And I am going to actually be sharing some great Black Friday sales from brands I love, but we have our own personal item or items that are going to be available next week for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And I think that we will post on Instagram Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We will post what it is on Tuesday on Instagram. So check it out then. And I'm really excited about it. And once we share what it is, we definitely have to do a podcast on the history of it.
Oh, yes. Yes, we will do a history podcast.
Yes.
And it will be funny. And everyone will laugh.
Okay. And then you also said you wanted to talk about the Birth Out Fear book a little bit.
I did.
What did you bring up?
Because it's a fantastic book. I've read it 3 times.
Thank you.
It just happens to be written by you.
Yes.
And you're my favorite human being. Aww. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
And I think people should read it if they are pregnant or postpartum. It's kind of hard to read while you're giving birth.
Yeah, probably
I know there's the whole pregnancy, birth, postpartum, but
yeah.
It's a great book. It was a team of us that wrote the book. Mm-hmm. And obviously you were the final say because you're the actual author. But it was a really fun process. And we were very synchronized in everything that we wrote. We were all writing the same things at the same time without actually knowing what the 3 of us were writing. And it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was neat. There's 2 things about the book that people don't realize. The first is that it's not just about pregnancy and birth, but a third of the book is postpartum.
Yes, it is.
And the second thing is that every single chapter has the partner perspective that you wrote. So those are like 2 gems in there that I think a lot of people don't realize are in there, and they're pretty good ones. So
they are.
Well, thanks, babe. You guys can get it on Amazon, our website, bookstores, library, your local library.
Anywhere books are sold, you can buy.
Yeah. And if you have read it and you did gain something from it, or you loved any part of it, if you can go on Amazon or Goodreads and give it a review, that just helps so much. And of course, it's wonderful for me, but what I really want is there to be good reviews on it so that when, especially first-time pregnant mamas and birthing people are looking into all this information, if they get on Amazon and type in pregnancy or birth books, I want it to pop up ahead of all the fear-mongering ones, So that's really why I want reviews on it, is so that it maybe comes up a little higher in the search for people that are searching for more information and about variations of normal and option support respect. So, yeah, thanks.
You're very welcome.
All right, so let's talk about Harshē Chiropractic. You graduated school in what year?
09,
yes. The journey. Go ahead.
I was going to say I got my license on December 22nd, 2009. So my official 10 years of being a licensed chiropractor is coming up here very shortly.
That's awesome. At some point, I would love to dive into your story with chiropractic, because it wasn't linear by any means. And I think it would be really cool to hear that story, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today.
Right. It is an interesting story.
It is. That'll be interesting. So maybe we'll call this Harshē Chiropractic Part 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just opened Harshē Chiropractic.
I did.
We did.
We did. Yeah.
A few months ago.
Yes.
Because we kind of needed to wait until I wasn't traveling as much, or at least winding down, because, we have quite a few things and quite a few children. So, yeah. So just a few months ago. And how's that going?
It's going really well. I'm having a lot of fun practicing full time again, but I've also gained a lot of knowledge and the last few years on a number of topics that have really helped me become a better doctor as a whole. And there was a lot of reading, a lot of studying on a lot of health related topics, both
and personal experience.
Right. Physical, spiritual, emotional, all the types of health you can think of. I've been reading a lot the last few years. So
yeah,
it's fun to apply it in real life.
Yeah, and experiencing a lot. I mean, just going through bodybuilding and then going through your own powerlifting journey, and somebody comes in and they're having an issue with like their deadlift, you have a lot of knowledge now on that firsthand experience, but also from an anatomical, like chiropractic standpoint as well. So yeah, you have gained a lot of knowledge.
Yes.
That's neat.
It's fun. It's fun to apply all the things you learn into actual practice. And then when you're able to take care of someone who, in my case, a lot of people I've seen over the years, they come in because they've been to this doctor and this specialist and that specialist. They've had this procedure and that surgery, and they've tried these pills and these. I mean, it's like everything. And they basically are coming to me as their last resort. And it can feel sometimes like there is a little pressure there, because it's like, well, man, I really want to help this person.
Yeah.
But they've tried everything and it hasn't worked. So am I going to be able to help them? But just about all of the time, it helps.
Oh, yeah.
I have 2 patients I can remember specifically out of the however many patients I've had over the years, but 2 only that I was not able to help. That literally told me that nothing I did helped them.
Right.
And I mean, that I feel pretty good about that.
2 out of thousands. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So
I wish that only 2 people in my last tenure of doing Birth That Fear had complained about me not helping.
Well, when it comes to your events, there aren't too many complaints about those.
There aren't. I maybe had 5 or 6 over 7 years.
That's a pretty good record for
that
you.
That is pretty
not
good.
Doing too shabby.
I mean, I think sometimes I've blocked 200 people in one day.
Yeah, I think you have, actually.
Okay, but this brings up a good point that it's so much different running an online business than it is running an in-person service-based business.
It is.
And I, for one, am so grateful to have that back in our lives. Because and you working again, doing something that you're really good at and that you really love has been so good for your mental health. But just you practicing again and you working again and your mental health, but also how it helps our family's health. And just, again, having a business that's not an online business, I think has been really good for our family the last few months. So I've noticed a really positive change in our lives with opening an office again.
Well, yeah. And when you think about it, if you think about business as a whole, when you have an online business and you're using social media a lot, social media is almost infinite. The internet is basically infinite. There's no limit. And because of that, there's no parameters. So you could be doing something on social media or on the internet, and someone in Northern Europe is trolling your social media account that you're working on for your business in, whatever city you live in. So that's really tough. But when you have an actual physical business, a brick and mortar, basically, it's different. You just have your parameters. You have your hours. You have your procedures, or the way you do things in your business.
You stay in your lane.
You stay in your lane. Yeah, basically, because you're an expert in that particular business that you're doing. Yeah.
It's very focused.
Right. It's very focused. And that's great. One other aspect about social media and an internet business I forgot as well is that people pay you first and then you have to fulfill on that. And that's actually somewhat challenging.
It's incredibly stressful.
Right. As opposed to providing the service and then getting paid, because you've made the money already. But then you have to fulfill on this promise. And a lot of times on an online business, when you're making that money, there's a lot you have to fulfill on.
Yeah.
And it could be daunting at times.
Yeah. And there's so much to that. That could be a whole other episode because that is so true.
All right, let's make a note.
No, but really, that's a really good point. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So, in what ways have you seen the most benefit in your own family physically, like actually adjusting like your kids and, me and, how is the benefit just not just Harshē Chiropractic? Like you said, you're practicing full time again, but you've always been practicing part time in a way because you're always taking care of your family.
Yeah.
So in what ways have you seen it help?
Well, like you always love to tell everyone, none of our kids have ever been on a single antibiotic.
No, you just went straight for it, didn't you?
The thing with chiropractic is that you want to make sure that the nervous system and the body are communicating perfectly with one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you live a healthy life and have a lot of vitality. When you have interference to that transmission of communication between the brain and the body, that's when you start getting symptoms and all sorts of things going on. And one of the things that the nervous system controls is the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your nervous system is functioning at 100%, chances are your immune system is going to be functioning at 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so when our kids are well adjusted, when you're well adjusted, when I'm well adjusted, and by that I mean we're getting chiropractic adjustments on a regular basis, once every week or two. In your case, in my case, is a little bit more than that. But when you're well adjusted and your nervous system is functioning well, then your immune system is going to be functioning well, and you're just not going to get sick if your immune system is functioning well. That doesn't work.
Very rarely.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way.
I feel like when we get sick, it's because our bodies are like, hey guys, we need to build some natural immunity, so you got to get sick this year. But it's very rare. And then there's so many things that we use for our health that aren't pharmaceutical. And this is why I call myself a witchy mom, because we are provided with a lot of ways for natural healing. For example, our oldest, she used to get ear infections, chronic ear infections. And I did as a child too. And so I got tubes put in my ears, right?
Right.
And so that's what she would have needed, because it was like she was getting them regularly, and she, especially when we went swimming in the summer. And so we found that when she got an earache or an ear infection, either one, that she was misaligned in her C1, not C2, her C1, her
C1,
atlas. Yeah. And so she would get it adjusted, and her body would regulate her temperature, and her fever would usually reduce a little bit. And then I would have a garlic oil, ear oil that we would use. And within a few hours, it pretty much would all clear up, and she'd fall back asleep and wake up the next morning symptom free of any earache or ear infections. And so I've seen things like that though for years. And when we do part 2, we'll get into this a little more, but I worked for a chiropractor right after we got married, and you were pursuing animation at the time. It changed my life.
Yeah.
It completely changed my viewpoint on body and our system and our health. It's actually me that really got into it, and I had to completely talk you into coming in to get seen and get adjusted. And right away, your allergies that you had for years in Arizona cleared up. My allergies cleared up.
Yeah.
It was helped me with low back pain, of course. And I stopped taking over the counter medications, everything. I really just essentially stopped going to the doctor because I didn't need to anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so chiropractic care became our primary care.
Yep.
And so when I worked for this chiropractor, it was a fairly large practice, and I saw things like this all the time. And I saw the biggest skeptics get help. And gosh, by the way, they become like referral slot machines, like on a loose night. Like they just if you can win over a huge skeptic with chiropractic care, they will refer everyone and their mom, auntie, uncle, baby daddy, mama, like everyone.
Oh, I love it when skeptical people come in. Yes. I actually get really excited when someone skeptical comes in, because I just know they're not going to be skeptical when they leave.
I know.
They never, ever are.
It's so neat, because they're looking for placebo or anything, or if you hurt them, I mean, they're looking for it. And
which actually leads me to a good subject real quick is I do a lot of focus on the C1 and the C2 vertebrae, or you can also call them the atlas and the axis. But when your C1 misaligns, we call this a vertebral subluxation. It sounds like a mouthful, but It's basically chiropractic lingo for when C1 and C2 misalign. And so your head's going to tilt one way or the other. Well, then that's going to cause everything below that to tilt one way or the other, including your shoulders and then your pelvis. And then when your pelvis is tilted, the leg on the high side of your pelvis is going to look shorter.
Yes.
And so the way to tell, for me, if someone has a C1 subluxation, one of the gold standards is when their legs are not the same length.
Yeah.
And then I adjust their C1, and then their legs are even afterwards.
Because everything starts to even out.
Yeah,
and, like an accordion.
And so where I'm practicing, I just have my own room. So if someone has a real big difference in their legs, I'll take a picture, a before and after picture, and I'll show them, and it just blows their minds.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty fun when I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, we had an ER doctor come in, and oh my gosh, he was completely converted to it. And I remember him mentioning something about how they just weren't taught to look at the spine that way.
Right. They're not.
And so his mind was literally blown, and he got his wife and his teenagers under chiropractic care too. And, so I saw this all the time with that. And then I've seen it with our own health. I would not have been able to get through most of my pregnancies without chiropractic care. There's just no way. I would have not been able to walk. Your practices, oh my gosh. I mean, people would, especially when we lived in the Panhandle in Texas, they'd walk up to me and be like, "You're Dr. Harshé's wife?" And then they would just go into their story about how you helped them. And then again, you'd have 30 people come in the next week from the town they came from, right? The little town they drove in from to see the chiropractor in Childress. Anyway, so it was great, but we saw all this all the time. And I mean, those encounters in the grocery store in the Panhandle of Texas will always be some of my favorites, because you helped someone enough that they had to stop me in, the frozen section to tell me their story. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, and then, for our family too, it's, people will say to me a lot, you're lucky to be married to a chiropractor. And I just, oh man, because there's just so much more to it than that. But what I am lucky for is that when my child wakes up not feeling well or has a little bit too high of a fever, because fevers are a good thing, right? They
actually are.
They're a really wonderful thing. It's one of the most incredible natural functions our body has to fight off an infection, right?
Absolutely.
Let's raise the temperature and kill off these bad cells. And the issue is when it spikes too high.
Kill off these invaders.
Right. The issue is when it spikes too high and then low and dips and all that, right? Like the irregularity. And so I know that you could check our kids, and if they're misaligned, adjust them, and then the body and the nervous system, the immune system can now regulate that body temperature and help their body and their immune system create whatever it needs to within it to now really fight hard to fight off whatever it is, why my child now falls back to sleep, because they've been adjusted. And that I am lucky for, because that has been one of the biggest blessings for our children's health that we could give them.
You don't sound like a chiropractor's wife. You sound like a chiropractor.
Well, we'll get into it more in part 2, but it is
You did talk me into it.
Yes, it is I who decided to be a chiropractor, and I talked you into going with me.
But it is I who knocked you up.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And stole your dream, basically.
Stop it.
But then you became an author and stole my dream. So
we can share each other.
Tit for tat.
We can share.
What? I didn't say anything bad.
We can share each other's dreams. Okay, babe. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? On that note, I think we'll save the rest for part 2. You guys, thanks for listening. And until next time.
Adios.
Love ya.